Welcome to Achieving Failure, a podcast about life stories. I'm your host, Chris, and this week we're doing something a little bit different, as this is a dedication episode to a stranger who not only changed my life, but motivated me to pursue my goals and dreams of being a photographer, director, and storyteller. This episode is dedicated to Chef Rob. You may be gone, but you'll never be forgotten. So one of the stories is actually in celebration. Actually, Joey kind of already heard this story, but I'm going to go a little more in depth. There's a lot to this whole podcast idea and why we started it. It was more going way back when my dad would always go, "Oh, you have such funny life adventures. You have such funny stories just about life. Like, you should make a movie." And obviously, movies cost way too much. So I wound up wanting to write a book, and of course, I'm illiterate and stupid and don't know how to write, so I wound up taking the easy way out and decided to make a podcast. But while all this was, I also decided to start up a side business, which I was doing photography, things I always love to do, like film photography, and this is actually kind of fueling my passion. But the one thing that kind of jump-started this, and this is more a quick little tribute, was to this guy named Chef Rob, who I met in the Las Vegas airport going to Dallas. And it was actually kind of a weird, coincidental initial meet and greet, because what wound up happening was I was going to Dallas for training, and I get there late as always, or I thought was late, and I show up to the airport and the lines are just stupid long. I mean, like, wrapping around the lower level of the building long. And of course, me being me, I get online, and the first thing I do is start fucking bitching. "Oh, goddamn lines are too long, blah, blah, blah." And this random guy just goes, "Ah, dude, I fucking hate going to the airport." And me being such the wonderful person that I am, I go, "I don't want to talk to this person. It's too early." However, I kind of humor the idea, and I just start going, "Yeah, we're making small talk, just kind of bullshitting." And all of a sudden, the lines just quickly start moving. I said, oh wow, I thought this is going to be like 2 hours, and I think the whole security line took 30 minutes to get through. However, we were online making small talk, and he asked me, "Well, what do you do?" I said, "Well, I work on airplanes, but I'm trying to start up a side business." To which he replied, "Oh, I have a production company." I said, "Oh shit, you got a production company?" And he goes, "Oh yeah, I was just coming back. I guess they had a Las Vegas Food and Wine Festival, and he's not only a chef, but he owns a production company." So I thought that was pretty cool. So he and I started talking, and he starts pulling out all these cameras. He's got like a bag, kind of like a backpack that I have. He starts pulling out all these cameras. And I mean, you're talking thousands of dollars worth of camera equipment. So this isn't like some, hey, I record stuff on my cell phone. We get through the line. We go through, we're getting closer to TSA, and he goes, "Hey, listen, I kind of like hurt myself. I like kind of pulled something on my arm. Weird question. Do you mind just helping like kind of throw my luggage on the belt, on the TSA belt, just for the x-ray?" I was like, "Yeah, okay, whatever." I just help him out. And afterwards he goes, "You know what? Since you're such a nice guy, let me buy you a drink." And that was during that time where I was like, I don't want to drink. I'm trying to take a break from not drinking. And like day 2, here's somebody going, "Let me buy you a drink." And I said, no, really, like on a personal thing, I'm not drinking. He goes, "No, I insist. Let me buy you a drink." Well, unfortunately, somehow Uncle came out of my mouth after twisting my arm. So we went to a bar, and we're sitting there just bullshitting. We wound up drinking a bunch of Johnny Walker Black. However, we sat there. I didn't even realize we sat there for about an hour and a half talking about food. Because he was a chef, and like I dick around making food, but I'm no cook, I'm no chef. I just copy and paste what I see online. But this guy was like a good chef. Like, he worked at a restaurant. He was like a legit chef. And then we started talking about photos, movies, advertising. He was even in the military, all this stuff. And I was like, this is wild. as the time started winding down, I was like, hey, I gotta go. I got a plane to catch, because he was going to Houston. I was going to Dallas. He kind of opens up his bag and goes, you know what? I like you. And I was like, okay. And he goes, I'm going to give you this as a gift. And I was like, what? And he gives me a Lumix G9, which is pretty much what I'm filming this podcast on, and a 25 millimeter prime lens. I believe it's called a prime lens. And an ND filter and a small rig cage and a wooden handle and like all this shit.
What a guy.
And I was like, dude, what the fuck? I was like, I'm not taking this. He goes, well, hold on. He goes, of course you don't. Hold on. I got to steal my SD cards out of it first. He goes, but yeah, you're going to take it. I was like, I'm not taking this. He goes, yeah. I said, dude, I know how much this camera costs, especially with all this equipment. I'm not taking this. He goes, yeah, you are.
They're not cheap.
And I'm like, dude, what? Why? He goes, you're a nice guy. I was like, yeah, but that's nice guys just don't get handed expensive cameras, especially with the whole setup. He goes, well, you know what? Let's do this. He goes, I'm going to make you a deal. If I give you this camera, you need to make a story. You need to make a film, a story, a film, a short, something about how we met. He goes, if you have funny life stories about just random adventures, let this be one of them.
Yeah.
So this is kind of a tribute to Chef Rob, because I'm shooting on his camera, because unfortunately, I think now I kind of found out late, because unfortunately I really wasn't close with him. He and I talked for a while. He actually helped me pretty much start up my LLC. Like he suggested this, but I called him on how to get started. Who do I go through? What do I do? How do I start up a business? He was like my guy my drone business, even though it's failing, it would have never been a thing without him.
Failing and not taking off are two different things.
Yeah. It's one of those, I don't mind failing because at least I know I succeeded. The unfortunate thing was, as time progressed, we've talked on and off for a couple weeks, just kind of bullshit and trading pictures back and forth, like just starting to mess around with his camera. I would send him pictures. Hey, what do you think? And as we all got busy, things happen, life goes on, and unfortunately, and I think that was like maybe 2 years. I think that was 2 years ago, a year or two ago.
Actually, it might have been a year, because if you were going to Dallas for training, that was your first surgery.
I don't know. Fall of 21. This all happened. That's when I met him. October. I think it was October of 21 is when I went. And that's when I met him. But unfortunately, like I said, you lose touch with people. You don't know anything. It's just whatever. You kind of catch up. I wanted to send him a message like, hey, Rob, hey, I've been doing a podcast. You should check it out. Like, I finally, even though I never got around to doing a film for you, hey, check out this podcast, because I'm going to actually do an episode about how we met. And unfortunately, like, as of whatever it is, what is it, March 21st, 2023, he died like a month ago. From, I think the timing of this is, I think he passed away due to an illness about a month ago.
So, just to touch on that, do you think that he knew he was sick when he handed you that?
See, I don't know. I was heartbroken to know, because he was my age, that, like, he died. And I was like, dude, like, what the fuck? Like, this guy had so much going on. Like, he was a chef. He was a production. Like, he owned a company. He was doing stuff for, like, he was doing commercial advertising. He was doing things for the city of Houston. Like, just, he was doing a food and wine festival. He was doing photos and all this stuff. And it was just one of those, it took some digging, because I was just curious, like, what happened? After kind of going through Facebook, Instagram, he had a pre-existing condition to where that kind of wound up being it. So it was one of those, yeah, I mean, it's unfortunate, but it's one of those crazy stories that I'm fortunate enough to at least have met him, because he changed my entire life. So
Well, that's good though. I mean, people that know they're sick, and they want to do the right thing. They'll leave little pieces of themselves behind with other people and hope that it kind of carries on. And I think that's probably what happened with this situation. And that's pretty amazing that you get to be part of it, though.
Yeah. And it really was one of those. I have crazy stories. I have crazy adventures, but maybe like a very, very small handful has actually left like a major impact on my life. Obviously, my my DUI was one of them, but meeting this guy who more or less took a camera and just shoved it into my chest and said, "No, you're taking this. You're not keeping my good one, but I'll give you this one." I said, I'm just forever grateful, and that actually, because of him, I spun off my side business. I started this podcast. It was because of this guy. He actually opened up so many doors for me, which I'm forever grateful, and I'm forever happy that it was just one of those. I could have never just. The guy next to me, who was also complaining about the lines, I could have just brushed him off as, whatever.
That's just, I don't know. It's crazy how stuff like that works.
Yeah.
I mean, just two complete strangers in one place at the same time, and it ends up, sending somebody off into this direction, and,
And I mean,
it's
like,
insane.
And then from there, like, well, with this particular scenario, the story continues. However, after he and I depart, the situation continues, even in a more of a unique fashion. Like I said, I'd love to try and maybe forward a chunk of this to his family, just to be like, even though I've met him, even though I only got to meet him for like 2 hours, how much of an impact a stranger makes on your life.
Yeah.